Oh yeah, back in the office again, back at it, like a goddamn servant to the guitar gods. And today, just a quick little maintenance tip about how to smooth the saddles on your ABR Nashville style bridge, such as this one. If you're getting string snappages, if you're snapping strings at this part of your guitar, or the unwinding at this part, a good thing to do, and it's always a good thing to do to spruce up when you change strings anyway, is to just smooth the saddle slots. If you're snapping strings here, the chances are 99% of the time there are some sharp points, sharp bits on the saddle that are damaging the string when you're playing. Pressure on there, it's eating into it, ping, there it goes, or it unwinds, let's say. If you've ever had that, I'm sure if you've played enough you have. This is particularly common on P or S bridges like this cheap thing. The saddles are very soft, the strings dig in, or if somebody's cut the saddles, the string radius too deep and the string is buried within the whole saddle, which we don't really want. We want most of it to be sat out. Wear and tear, it is what it is. That's the nature of the beast. So a good little tip to do is, we're just restringing this one up actually after a setup, and we found that these are all gnarled and garbage, so we're just gonna set the radius and burnish, what's called burnish the saddle. A good way to get those nibs off is little bits of wet or dry, wet and dry, if you want to call it that, sandpaper. This is, if depending how much of a mess they are, you can use various aggressive coarse grits, move into a finer. This is just a 400 grade wet or dry to start with, to get the bulk of the garbage off there. And I just kind of just get a worn piece, doesn't have to be fresh, and just kind of fold it gently, don't pinch it too tight, and just fold it till it sits in that saddle slot there. We're working on the D wound string, and just sit that in there and just pass it a couple of times through. The paper will find its own niche in the taper of the slot, depending on the thickness of it, of course. When it gets into the plain strings, we'll get down finer, but just pass it through a couple of times. It's very light paper, so we're not digging in and widening the slot so much that the string is going to buzz in there. And I just a couple of times with this 400, and I've just got this 2000. You don't have to go down in grades that much, just enough to put a nice smooth surface in there. It's working in to the max depth of the slot by the nature of the paper being soft and finding its own way. We're not going too heavy. And with the wound strings, what I like to do then is get a bit of offcut. When I put the string on, I get a bit of offcut, the excess, which I snip off and usually throw away, and it's fresh. And I use this as almost like a file or a burnisher. If you know what burnishing is, it's just use the gauge of string for the saddle that you're going to be, the D, so that's the gauge. In this case, it's a 26 gauge. And then I can feel how smooth that is already. And just use a bit of excess to just burnish. And sometimes what I'll do is I'll place my finger on top there, put in some pressure and just pull it through like that a couple of times. it's not that aggressive that it's going to cut a new slot depth. It's just taking the nibs and the garbage away from the sides that might pinch this string or dig into it, cause it to snap. And just pass it through a couple of times. And it's as easy as that. String back in the slot and then tighten up. And that just gets rid of the excess sharp bits on here. Now for the plain strings, you don't want to be using a wound string to burnish them so much, because the slots are getting thinner as per the gauge of the string. So just use that wet and dry technique. Again, we've done this one actually. If you're snapping your G string, pause, and then with the B just gently pull that through, and it's going to take those sharp edges off. You can even tilt a little bit to the side following that sort of V taper of the slot. It should be round. If you cut these in properly when you're doing a setup with a gauged nut file, it should be a nice round bottom. Pause. But again, just pass it through, and I've got whatever. You could go various grades. This is 2000. This is super smooth, and I could feel a little snag on it. Sometimes you'll have it on the flat side of this saddle, and you might just find that a little flat file, just to take that burr off, it'll be right at the edge, and that's what on the plain strings is going to just ping them. Wound strings are going to kind of unwind a little bit more, because a wound string is a piece of string wrapped round the centre core of another piece of string, right? Couple of times in there, you can see it starting to shine up. We're not wanting to open that slot up too much, so the string is going to rattle and buzz in there. And then there we go, string on, and then we're just going to tune up. We're going to restring, like I've shown in the previous video about how to restring your guitar correctly or in a very solid manner without doing the knots and tying loops and all that. A very simple 1/over rest under wraps. Some people don't agree with that, but you know, you tell that to the people who signed my checks for the past 20 years doing this with no trouble. Top 10, top #1 platinum selling artists that I've worked with. Studio, on the road, workshop, your mum's house, yeah, your mum's house before she kicked me out, right? Because we know what we're doing here. So while you're bitching and complaining about how this is getting done wrong, while you're sat watching this video on public transport or stuck in traffic on your way to your nothing job, your boys in here getting paid, yeah? Your boys travelling the world with musicians, getting the checks signed. So we know what we're doing. It's all fun and games. Like, sub, don't like, comment good, comment bad. It's all a laugh either way for me, because again, the end of the day, mortgage is paid on time, boys. Easy, innit?